So, man kann mich, glaube ich, jetzt schon hören. Danke, Caroline. Und du hast ja schon die Anmoderation halb übernommen. Und ich bin ein bisschen enttäuscht, dass du nicht erstmal noch zum Abschluss deiner Rede die Glocke geläutet hast, wie es auf den Bildern zu sehen war. Aber das versuchen wir vielleicht jetzt so ein bisschen nachzuholen. So we're going to switch to English. I'm going to have a 30-minute panel talking about financing Europe's resilience, how to scale up investments. Wonderful panel. I'm going to have the people introduce themselves a little bit later. And so we're going to talk about money, investments, and if and why our panelists believe that now is a good time to invest in Europe. And I'm going to start with Elina. Please introduce yourself and also talk a little bit about your firm and what you personally love about investments.
Thank you, Jan. Hi, I'm Elina Berabi. I'm one of the founding partners of Revaya, which is a growth stage investment firm. So basically, we finance scale-ups or young scale-ups across Europe. We are based in Paris, London, Berlin, and Munich, and we back today around 20 companies. And so our role is basically scaling a company from 5-10 million revenue to 50, 100, 200 million. And what I love about the job, it's when you power and support such fast growth, it's a constant reinvention of the type of support that you have to provide. It's like constantly day one, because what you back at the inception is a very small company. And once you exit, it's a complete new world of more institutional capital. Can be IPO, can be buyout, can be private equity, and so I love the day one.
Very good. Sebastian.
Sebastian Peck, I'm the managing partner of Compass. We are a Danish early stage venture capital firm, typically focusing on C to Series B. Investing out of our second fund. We focus on industrial technologies across productivity, decarbonization, and resilience. And what I like about the stage we come into, it's really at the beginning it's about talent. At the end, it's about structure, process, and really forming an organization that is bigger than any individual. And that journey can be a very, very interesting, a very testing journey. For any founder. I've been through that journey myself as an entrepreneur, I'm really, really happy to be able to help others to do the same.
So next one I would ask Hayo with a totally different perspective.
Yeah, so my name is Hayo. I'm a partner for Altor. Altor is a private equity fund originally founded in Scandinavia 23 years ago. And we are investing basically in companies that are undergoing transformation or that are basically enabling transformation. So we are investing in technology companies, but we are also investing in Mittelstand companies that are basically supplying industries that are undergoing transformation, or we are investing in companies that are actually benefiting from transformation on the digital side. What I love about investing is really how multifaceted it is. Finance is probably the least part of what we do. I think it's a lot about strategy. It's a lot about operational change. And in the end, it's also about people and how to influence people to do the right things in the end. And that's what basically makes it a great job to have.
And Caroline, you introduced yourself earlier, but what do you love about investing personally?
Yeah, I think Percy is probably also mixed with a dot. For us, it's super important to leverage the European capital market to really show that our European exchanges, and especially also Deutsche Börse, provide deep liquid markets. And how do we create that? By giving visibilities to the companies that list with us.
So the first question I kind of want to start with is the question, is there right now a good time to invest in Europe? Or some say there's the best time to invest in Europe is now. Why is that? And I want to make it a little bit harder. I've been in this industry for 15 years, and somehow all the time is the best time. So I'm hearing the argument, now is the best time to invest right now. So what's your perspective? Why is it a good time to invest in Europe?
Who wants to jump in? I'm happy to start. I think what we're seeing now from our lenses is a sort of momentum with, I think, a global geopolitical complex that's I think, probably being the right shake-up moment for Europe. We're seeing a lot of decision makers from the political side or the economic side that have read the Draghi Letta report that are all pointing towards more investment in energy and innovation in Europe. So I think there's a combination of signals that I think make Europeans realize that it's time to believe in our strengths and put our money where our lives are. And I think all of the players here play an important part in that at different steps of the value chain. And if I zoom on our stage, which is growth, I hope we can count on better, collaboration between countries. I'm personally based in France, and I think the French-German angle is a very important axis to work on, and this is where also we try to propel our companies. So more collaboration between countries. I think more an increased, better attention to removing all of the regulatory hurdles to companies expanding across multiple countries. I think we'll have a resilient Europe with companies of small scale that can grow to a bigger scale thanks to a market that's more unified in many ways. And I think with the strengthening of the different parts of the value chain that we represent, we're seeing increasingly, more and more growth funds like us. I hope we'll see more and more great IPOs. But all of that's pointing towards there's more financing that's available for innovation and to take risk, and I think that's great.
What's your perspective from a totally different side of the market, as you are kind of like more on the buyout PE?
Yeah, I think it's always a question of whether the glass is half full or half empty at any point in time, right? And I think what we are seeing right now in Europe, that there are basically large macro trends which are presenting really attractive investment opportunities, whether it's in green transition, whether it's basically in digital transformation. We can position ourselves basically for the future also by supporting, for example, Mittelstands companies. So one of the things that we're seeing, for example, that have been mentioned is the advent of AI. We are talking about data centers. What's attractive for us is which are actually the suppliers to data centers. So how do we invest in Mittelstands technology companies which are building the infrastructure that we actually need to enable AI? And there are significant opportunities there also for private equity companies.
Caroline?
Yeah, I agree with what both of you said. I think it's very important, that we start to stand on our own feet. I think we have everything that it takes. We have the innovation, we have the great companies, we have capital that is flowing in, from institutional investors globally, but also there is, if you look at, all the household savings in Europe, which accumulate to 33 trillion euro that are not invested. I think it's a shame because we have these great companies and we should give people the opportunity to also engage in these growth companies and to profit from that.
And just out of curiosity, does any one of you believe that now is not a good time to invest in Europe? Mm-hmm. So how many people in the audience believe that now is a really good time to invest in Europe? Or how many are skeptical of the environment? So there seems to be a very positive momentum. And want to switch kind of like to the public market side. So when I grew up in the industry, every entrepreneur I met was talking about, I want to go public. That has disappeared. So nobody walks into a pitch. If you read a business plan, and they don't talk about going public anymore. There's a kind of like, that dream has kind of gone. Sebastian, why do you believe that is the case?
Well, I think that's been a trend that's been taking place for some time, not just now. If you look at the amount of money that private capital pools are now able to mobilize at later stages of the company cycle. That is fairly unprecedented when you go back, let's say, 20 or 10 years ago, right? Normally, the pipe would look like this. You would have venture capital firms taking on the early technical risk, the early execution risk. Then you would have growth investors, maybe some pre-IPO investors, but eventually, the IPO was the goal. Now you have capital pools that are able to effectively keep those funds flowing that would previously have been raised through a public offering, and capitalize the companies in such a way that they just don't need public markets. I don't think that's good because it breeds corporate cultures that are not as transparent as is the case with public companies. I also think when you look at what's happening in the broader world of technology and you look at some of the governance structures that are in place, I don't think it's always been very, very healthy when you look at the broader ecosystem. If you had governance structures that weren't probably the kind of vanilla structure you would have seen in an IPO 20 years ago. So I think there are some drawbacks. On the plus side, it enables these companies to escape the cycle of quarterly reporting and, of course, of the compliance apparatus you have to build around being a public company.
So, Carol, you presented earlier some aspects of how you're targeting or tackling this problem from a media and kind of like perspective. Can you elaborate more what you really believe needs to change in the mindset?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is a mindset question, and I think we have a very short memory. So I think we've seen little IPOs, but it's only been the case for the past 3 years, not beforehand. And if we see at all the things that happened over the past 3 years, so either it be Corona or also the changing interest rate environment, I mean, this obviously triggered the change. But if we look at our pipeline that we see for Deutsche Börse until the end of this year, I must say it is pretty filled, and I'm very optimistic that such a question would not be asked at the end of the year.
And do we believe that investors are the problem or entrepreneurs are the problem?
No, entrepreneurs are definitely not the problem. I think we just need to get a little bit more positive mindset about, the capital market in general. We Germans, we are way too hesitant about it, and that needs to change. And this is why we actually need pictures, of the success stories. And this is what we're doing at Deutsche Börse. We really we let them speak for themselves.
So Elina, Ohio, are you guys working on IPOs? Do you believe some of the companies you're working with right now will IPO in the next, let's say, 3 years?
Ladies first.
Yeah, of course, there.
I'm always happy to hear names, so we can start monitoring.
I'll add to your pipeline. Happy to add to that. But basically, as we speak, about 80% of our companies that have between 50 to 200 million euros, so obviously those that are closer to the 200 million mark, are those that can contemplate an IPO. Obviously, there is this talk about what's the right threshold to IPO, what's the right market cap, etc. And obviously, what's the location that you would ideally target. I do think that when you reach those numbers, I think the capital markets are a way to prolong the state of independence of the company. I think you don't have a majority financial or industrial buyer in your capital. So I think for management or founders that are very strong, I think it's the only route towards a form of independence and balanced governance. I think it's an incredible visibility that no financial investor like us could provide, right? And just now we're seeing that some of our bigger competitors, some of the bigger competitors of our portfolio companies that are contemplating a listing, they're going to benefit from increased visibility, hence potentially lower customer acquisition costs. So when you see your competitors listing, that's a pressure for you to list over time. So I'm sort of seeing this positive flywheel effect. It's not like a 6 months preparation. I can tell you that the companies that are 200 million revenue now, they have 3-year plans to reach certain numbers. And I think the virtue of the public market is that you know how you should look like, and so there's no secret about like what numbers should look like, so you can prepare many years ahead of time.
How you, which are
I think
preparations are you working on?
Yeah, so I think we have about 50 portfolio companies, and I think there is also a number of those portfolio companies where an IPO is certainly an opportunity for us. I think for us, given that we are not only present in the DACH region but also present in the Nordics, it's not only a question of the domestic basically market here in the DACH region but also in the Nordics. And I think one thing that we are observing, which I think also speaks to your point, is that the markets in the Nordics relative to the size of the company are deeper. And therefore we have more opportunity to IPO companies. And I think in Germany, as also the public pension system continues to shift or starts to shift increasingly more towards financial investments, I think the market will become deeper and deeper also in the DACH region, which will present us with future opportunities also more on this side, basically.
So I want to take it private again, and a lot of the identity also this conference, this region, is the German term called Mittelstand. So we are software investors. We are living in a world that's dominated by big software and technology companies. I'm starting to develop a perspective that this kind of almost like obsession with the Mittelstand might be a problem for Germany. Anybody has a perspective here? What's your perspective of like, can you survive in a tech market being Mittelstand?
If I may, I really have a soft spot for the Mittelstand, and here's why. I think if you look at a lot of these companies, a lot of them were actually the OGs of entrepreneurship after the war. So one of our LPs is the family that owns Velux. They're in the sort of third generation. If you look at the guy, Wilhelm Kahn Rasmussen, who founded the company, he looks like any one of those guys out there today. He hung out in Greenland. He was a super adventurous guy. And these people built businesses that were incredibly focused.
But can they survive in an ultra-competitive technology and software
So here's my point. The good ones understand that it's not about a specific product. They have a very, very clear sense of their identity and their mission, right? What they want to accomplish. The focus combined with being able to abstract from your mission, from your goal, and understanding how you need to innovate over time in order to keep your product fresh. That is absolutely crucial. Now, you could argue a lot of companies are really struggling with this. You look at the German automotive industry, for example, right? If you look at a product like Porsche, it should be very, very clear what the identity of that product is. Why they can't just bring it into the next technology cycle, that is the question you are asking, and that is the fear you have. I think there will be a bifurcation with some being very, very successful, others will fail.
Other perspectives?
I would fully agree with that, because I think as long as basically Mittelstand companies continue to be ultra focused on their niches and basically understand which part of the technology value chain they want to basically play in, they can be successful. I think we, for example, invested more than 10 years ago into a company that was supplying into the robotics markets, providing suction cups basically for robotics. That was highly successful, and that will never be replaced by one of the big companies out there.
Yeah. So, final topic I wanted to touch on is kind of like politics. Imagine you're chancellor for a day. What would you kind of like change? If you had all of a sudden the political power to make certain changes. Any ideas? Because we always complain about politics, but imagine yourself being in the position of power.
So I have the good fortune of living in the Netherlands and also spending a lot of time in Scandinavia. And the thing that is absolutely beyond me is the question why Germany can't digitize its public administration. So in the Netherlands, I do everything with an app, with a digital identity. It's super easy, it's super slick. The same in Norway. When I invest in a business, I need to be registered as a director. it's a transaction on my mobile phone. Why can't we manage to get that done in Germany? I don't understand it.
So it's more like a broader ecosystem landscape, less a investment-specific topic, what you would change.
It's about efficiency, how you manage the state. And the state is not managed in a way it should be managed in the 21st century.
Any other wishes or things you would change if you were in power?
I have a word for institutions and institutional capital. I think if we want to build a resilient Europe, we have to have the resources and capacity to develop innovation, and hence to have people like us around the table and many others that provide capital into the future of our economies and into creating the jobs of the future. And I think the pensions in Germany, in France, it's the case everywhere. They're under-indexed on what's going to provide the jobs and the future wealth of the future generations. And I think this is really critical for the destiny of Europe, for our lifestyles, for the buildup of our wealth and the wealth of people that are retiring. And that's valid for across Europe. I would put any incentive in place to remove a bit of the weight that is on the capital of the insurers whenever they invest that in private equity and or innovation. I think the US have been very strong in carving out exceptions for banks, notably to invest in venture capital. And as much as they were trying post the global financial crisis to refrain the banks from engaging in risky activities, they still carved out innovation because this is so critical. And I think we haven't had that culture in Europe at the political level that, innovation is what you have to preserve. And if there are any barriers to that, whether that's in savings, in investing capital from insurers, whether that's investing your pensions, I think removing the frictions around that is really critical.
I agree. I think I would also like more people to basically participate in the value creation that we have in Europe, right? I think GDP growth historically has always been higher than salary growth. And I think what we've seen in particular in Germany is that the population has not been participating in that because our pension systems are not geared to basically participate in capital growth.
Yeah. Let me push back on that. Isn't that just our industry asking for more money?
I think if you look at basically the distribution of wealth and how people have participated in it, other nations have done better than ours. And I think, therefore, from a social perspective, it's of utmost importance that basically people start participating in it. Otherwise, we will have a more fundamental change in our economic system.
Understood. Carolyn, or?
Yeah, well, I would say, make our kids financial savvy. Yeah, financial education is super important. We really need our kids to understand what single stocks are, what ETFs are, what funds are, what benchmarks are, and so on. So I think this is the thing that I would definitely add, because it is kind of the fundament or the basis to all of what my peers said here.
I think the challenge with the German system is that you're effectively removing vast resources from any kind of economic activity, because you're really just shifting money from the left to the right rather than putting it to productive use. And then obviously generating an additional dividend from that. And I think if you look at Scandinavia again, you look at Sweden, which is a brilliant example. You look at the US, the ability to have a markets-based mechanism to basically ensure you save for the future, and that capital is being put to productive use. It's way, way better than this money literally being just shifted from left to right.
So I want to finish it off by asking each of you to give the audience a personal investment thesis right now, a short topic you are super interested in right now. And to not make it so boring, we're going to exclude AI from the answer pool. So what is something that currently fascinates you, where you think, I want to invest there in the future?
Yeah, these days I'm very excited about genome sequencing. So I was not aware of that only a few weeks ago, but it's So genome sequencing, so basically deciphering your genome, used to be something that would cost $1 billion 20 years ago, sequencing like one DNA of one person. And now 20 years in, it's 80 euros. So there are very few examples of a technology that's so instrumental in many things, and the cost of which has decreased by so much over a short period of time. It's very impressive. And so that means that basically genomic sequencing is available for everyone, and there's a lot of more applications around that I'm excited about.
Sebastian?
Actually, adjacent to that, I think bioengineering is an incredible technology. If you look at CRISPR gene editing, we have companies in our portfolio that are able to do incredible things. We've got one company that has produced the first carbon-neutral insulin using bacteria producing effectively insulin through genetic engineering. It's incredible, and it gets way too little attention.
Carolyn?
You know what? I'm very easily influenceable. Everyone I always speak to, I'm fascinated to. So yesterday we spoke about drones with quantum systems. Today I spoke with a company called Krone, and they are into agriculture vehicles. And every time I speak to someone, I'm just fascinated. So I think it's all pretty interesting.
Hayo? Your final pitch?
I may be slightly more conservative, but maybe that's my private equity lens here. But I think anything that's related to climate transition continues to be a long-term topic for us. And I think there are going to be tremendous amounts of capital flowing into climate transition. So any basically Mittelstands company that is going to be a supplier to that industry is going to be interesting and will continue to benefit from that trend for the foreseeable future.
So thanks, everybody. Thanks to my panelists. Thanks to everybody for coming. And have a good afternoon. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Thank you very much.